So let me ask you this. Have you ever applied for a job and thought, is my resume even the right format? Or sat through rounds of interviews wondering why hiring process feels like a mystery novel with no ending in sight? So here I am, Johnny, and this is Corporate Elements, and where we unpack real workplace questions with people who live them every day. Today, we are diving into the world of HR recruitment. Yup, that department everyone depends on, but no one really understands. From what makes your resume stand out, why hiring feels so slow, what is the leadership thinking while hiring, and what is favoritism, burnout, and even mental health, and how is it handled or not. We are working through your career journey and from the first job hunt to your final exit with an insider who's seen it all. So we are joined today with Dimple. She has years of experience in human resources, recruitment specifically, having worked across tech, finance, and startup ecosystems. Whether it is hiring leaders, designing people policies, or managing tensions between employee expectations and business realities, this guest has been on the front lines. So if you ever thought what does HR recruitment really does behind closed doors, you're about to find out.
Hey Dimple, Robbie.
Hi, Robbie. Good afternoon.
It's pleasure to have you, and I'm really excited because today I've got an opportunity to ask you those questions which has been really bothering us all, and for a while, to be honest. And to start with, is there really like one right way to write a resume? Okay, the format I use is said to be a Singapore-based format, and I found it on internet. But I want to understand since many job seekers are obsessed over formatting.
Okay. So you want to understand, is there one specific format? There isn't. So it's not, that one formula suits all. It varies from experience and industries both. So if somebody is a fresher, is in a frontline job, going to apply for a frontline job, needs a photo, has to have one page or resume. Even somebody who's a 30-year-old experienced person, any industry, has to have 1 to 2 max page of resume. Without a photo is fine. So it's how it works. That's one formula you can use. However, when it comes to mid senior levels and other levels, usually 2 pager resume is good, nothing more than that.
And the way these people, like a lot of resumes that I've seen, is like they put photos in that. Is that like really necessary? Because one of my friends, what they said that, oh, sometimes it leads to bias as well.
Photos are required in roles where it is frontline roles. They do need it. And even if you are not comfortable giving it, until and unless the HR asks you, don't give it.
And
That's something you can do.
And by frontline, what do you mean? Is it like into sales, for example?
Into sales, into customer service, like how you have cabin crews in aviation. So those are the roles that need photographs. They need to check your personality. They need to see how you look and, then decide.
And what are all the content on the resume that are focused on? For example, the objective, like how impactful or how big or brief it should be.
It depends. So if you want to put an objective specifically, just ensure it's nothing more than 3 to 4 lines, because whether you're a fresher or you're a 30 years experience or 10-15 years also, 4 lines is good enough to describe it in the beginning. Because in while hiring, what we essentially look at is how many years of experience you have, skill set, right, and your focus on which skills. That's it.
And how about certifications?
Certifications you can cover in the educational sector. So I'll tell you how a standard resume can look like, and it can attract recruiters. So objective is the first bit. You can begin with your name, your phone number, email, your personal details, right? Go for objective. Then go for experience, which means it has to start with the most recent company you're working with. I have seen and struggled with resumes which are last company first.
Oh,
Believe me, it's a turn off. And a lot of people tend to just reject CVs like these because they understand that they assume that this person doesn't know how to write a resume, right? So your last experience should be first, and all of the things that you've done in your career life, you have to put it there. Because if you say my initial 3 years experience was not relevant to what I'm currently doing, then I only assume as a third person, me at recruiter level and my hiring manager, we both assume that you were on a gap, you were at home. We don't assume that you were working. So you have to add that.
And what if someone has a gap? For how long period of gap is acceptable?
Today we are trying to normalize gaps. As recruiters, it is our responsibility that we make the hiring panel understand that gaps are okay to have, because at my level I do not reject resumes. No recruiter will reject resumes basis the gap, but your hiring panel will do, because they have somebody set in some set of thoughts in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as I feel like you can echo that thought or probably support it with some points that say if there is a gap, so that gap needs to be explainable. Okay. So if I believe I've had some interview where the one of our managers used to say that, oh, there is a bit of a gap. Can is it explainable? Do you have any kind of information on this one? So I would say yes, sir, because this particular candidate who came in, this gap, he explained it this way, and at that point of time, he supported with the certification that he was doing, or probably there was a medical issue that was happening, and this way we try to probe a little bit. So as long as it is explainable, I think that is acceptable. What do you think, Dimple?
Agreed. As long as you have a logical explanation to it, it is completely acceptable. And people are getting hired even with gaps today. It's something that a recruiter needs to bridge.
So now the hot topic for me, and it always sort of has been a burning question for me. Why do people so focus so much on the tier one colleges hiring? Why is it like overhyped, or is it necessary? Why do you think it's so overhyped?
Whole and sole reason is that the tier 1 colleges have curriculums that are set for the students to come up to a specific level. They are able to handle that pressure, they're able to handle those tough deadlines at college level, so they're able to meet the corporate expectation, and it doesn't work similarly in other tiers. So that's one primary thing. However, I also find that changing of late. A lot of IIMs, to be honest and specific, that the deadline, sorry, the what do you say, the percentages to get there have reduced. Even people with 50-60% are getting admissions basis the quota factor, and again that quality has come down.
Correct.
So that's why you see a company like a EY keeping drives for 12th pass students for a specific data science project or for a specific data science role.
Yeah.
Right. So because companies and industries are now realizing that skill is important. But having said this, I would say largely the tier 1 tag still works.
Okay.
Yeah.
I recently had read about IIM Trichy, or probably IIM Jammu. They had like 50, 67 students who went like they were not placed anywhere. And it is sort of an alarming situation that even IIMs are not able to now get jobs for their students. And at the management level, like what can be those reasons? Have you come across any such scenarios as such?
Like I said earlier, this is primarily because of the quota system that is still running in these colleges. Also, earlier, probably it was not there. But today, with that system in place, a lot of people who have got even less than the scoring percentages that are required to get into an IIM in the first place, they're also getting into IIMs. Be it Jammu, be it Sirmaur, there are a lot of these small IIMs that have come up. But again, these students face issues with hiring.
Okay.
Yeah.
And moving on to the next question, why does hiring take so long? Like, is it the process overload or the communication?
Hiring is actually not long. Any specific scenarios you want to highlight, where you guys personally felt that hiring was, went on for long?
I think there was one scenario that I saw. I think the last two organizations that I've seen, the hiring is quite slow, mainly because now, especially in big companies that I've worked with. So I've seen that it takes quite a long time because every department or probably a process that they're working in. So, or the project, I'm so sorry for using process, the word, it is project. So, any project that they're working on. So, there the requirement comes in from there, and then it is communicated to HR and then so on. So, I think that whole deal takes a quite a long time. At least I have seen that 90 days of time they're spending, or 90 days they're spending just to make sure that they put out that particular requirement outside. So that is one scenario that I've seen.
I believe that can be project specific. If your requirement or if your head count is final, position can be closed as fast as 30 days.
Okay.
And when I say closed, I mean offered, and then person can take their own notice period to join.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this same scenario, these people solved it was that they took a large data set of last 2-3 years of hiring post COVID,
Okay.
and they found out that we are taking 90 to 120 days just to hire one person, and then they have had scenarios at the 90th or 110th day they come to know that, oh, this particular person joined some other company. So that also affects the mindset of the person. So what
Yeah.
they did is the very good thing about what they understood, although it took like a year to understand, but what they did is that, oh, let's on a monthly basis, starting from day one, we start asking departments, do you have any requirements? Do you have anything? And even before a requisition is raised, first they float it out on the internet, or like, for example, LinkedIn ho gaya. Sorry, it is LinkedIn or probably any job portals, and then they combine those resumes on day 24 or day 25, and on day 30th what they do is they put a drive. So this way,
Yeah.
the whole organization, they pile up like a 30 positions requirement. They on the 30th day they will start interviews, and by 35th day they will have a pool of candidates, and they start finalizing those candidates at that point. So they were able to bring down the number from 120 days to literally 30 days. So that is what they did. So I found it very interesting kind of case study at that point of time.
I don't think it's working.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me personally, I've not seen a lot of cases where hiring has been slow. In a scenario, if at all you feel, if a candidate feels, or if somebody feels that I was interviewed say 2 weeks back or something, and I'm not given a role yet. I have been told that I have been selected. I've not been given offer, etc. See, these are the scenarios when say a project comes up. So this is services and IT specifically that I'm talking about. The project was supposed to come up, it didn't come up. But the hiring was projected on the projected project. Okay, so that didn't happen, probably. That's one scenario. But if you go in any other industry, when headcounts are decided in the beginning of the year, when the budgeting is done, those are the requirements that quickly close down. And only reasons for the slowdown could be, I don't think internal processes are also slow, because every hiring panel who I have worked with personally, they wanted the hire to come yesterday. So yeah, so that's the kind of deadline I have faced throughout my so many years of work experience. Yeah, so if you have to ask me to boil down kyun slow hota hai, 2-3 factors. Your projects are not in place, probably जो आपने project किया था वो नहीं हो रहा है. The headcounts are decided, and somebody all of a sudden just resigns. Somebody who was not expected to go. Those strategies have to be in place. अगर वो नहीं है, those are the 2-3 factors at work.
And the next question is another very important aspect is background checks. Like, how are they affecting the whole process of recruitment?
Honestly, today more than ever, background checks have become important, because a lot of certifications, degrees are coming fake. And this is especially happening a lot in IT, and a lot at the junior level also in the other industries. Right? So hence background verification, background checks have become extremely important. Companies are outsourcing these, and the companies who are getting these projects to verify background, they're taking it very seriously, and a lot of cases do come up.
Robbie, I've also heard that there is something called as narco tests as well that are happening, right?
Yeah, candidates are tested for drug abuse. Recently, I have heard Accenture did that in as a part of hiring process. There was this candidature. He was asked to provide some samples
Okay.
for testing purpose, and he was given a form to acknowledge also as a part
Sure.
of hiring. So that even being part of the industry for 5 years back, I when I heard that, I found like it's really strange. So I was wondering whether the drug abuse is like happening in the industry and what are the actions taken on that part.
If you talk about HR policies and drug abuse, I mean, when you join an organization, you go through these policies which tell you not to do it. But then if somebody is, using these things externally after their working hours, as an organization, becomes very tough to track and, take that responsibility and ownership. So if, a company is doing that, then probably it is important for the role. I am not justifying anybody here. It could be one factor, threat. And in these cities, only in tier one cities today, a lot of drug abuse is happening and alcohol abuse is happening. I mean, that's the truth. So these new things are coming up. Earlier, we were not doing credit checks.
Yes, that was
Today, even,
but
yeah.
why is it? I thought it's limited to banks or the type of industry.
Yeah.
But is it that every industry is doing the similar?
Today, they're doing it. I recently heard about a manufacturing organization do it. Earlier, I also knew that banks were doing it because just to ensure that they're not hiring defaulters. So that's the only reason they, have. And I feel somewhere or the other, these are the things that matter in long term because, I'll just give you one example where I practically was a part of a situation like that. So I was an HR for a IT services organization and we hired somebody at the regional head level. And he worked with us for a good 3 months in the beginning, and he came across as somebody who's very strict or very authoritative. So he would make decisions and just ask us to follow, and probably that's okay, in a large fashion. That's okay because he was a sales head. Now one fine day, so he had a sales team of around say 10 people, right? And one fine day, one of them came up to me and said that you know there are he's asking us all for money.
What?
Yeah.
If-
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's a scenario that I'm giving you basis my experience, what I've observed.
Okay.
Right. And we found out that he was asking money to every team member, even after being a regional head. He had his own reasons, probably. Right. That factor. They used to, salespeople usually tend to hang out post their working hours, etc. That's a normal practice and that's okay. Now asking money post, working hours and hanging out together, alcohol and all of that, probably that's okay. But asking money and keeping it for 3 months, 4 months, after that somebody highlighted, this is happening. And then I found out that he has taken money from almost all the team members, and everybody then spoke up that 50K spending, 20K spending. So it's a real time scenario that happened, post which it went to the HR head. My HR head was based in Bangalore, and we had to terminate him then.
Quite sure.
Yeah. So that's why, credit checks have become very important because these things are happening.
Okay. And moving on to the next question, like how me as an employee and how can I negotiate my salary without sounding greedy or desperate? And I believe that I deserve a certain percentage of hike. And as per the industry standards, I hear from other new joinees that okay, certain percent of hike was given. So how can one negotiate that, or what works behind the cost?
See, how can you negotiate? Today, a lot of content, goes around this particular area. While they, ask you to ask specific questions and all of that, largely, it doesn't work that much. But if you want me to be honest about it, there's a good way of negotiating, and I can give you a good way, and you can use it, and you can see if it works for you, because I have seen it working for others. So if you are taking up an offer from a company and you have another interview that you're going to give, So ensure that you're giving 2-3 interviews at 2-3 different companies and cracking them, right? And you have to have another offer in hand in order to negotiate one.
With just one offer, I cannot negotiate.
You cannot negotiate, as in,
I just have one offer.
if you have just one offer, then you got to be smart enough and find out the budget.
Okay.
Have internal connections, find out budgets. You have to find out what is the budget so that you can negotiate. If they are telling you they don't have the budget and they really don't have the budget.
If, for example, I did my web search, and from that I found that for a certain position that I'm applying, there is a certain threshold of salary which is defined, and that is the only offer that HR also was giving me, and they were not able to push up the threshold, as they're saying that there are certain approvals that are required.
Right.
In that scenario, what can be done?
Like I said, you got to find out what is the
So that
limit.
the web search result, the offer.
Web search result, if you feel that's the truth, you can talk to your HR. You can ask them to support you. And sometimes they will.
Okay.
I think sometimes you have to do a little brute force checking. Like, for example, when you go on LinkedIn, I think you might find that particular, there are like people who are working in that same department or probably same sort of situation in that same organization or related organization. So you can ask them that, okay, what is the normal range of salary? That is one way to check. But the basis of everything, I just want to add over here, is that in that particular field, in that industry, or in that organization where you're working in, okay, something that should be constant is your performance. If your performance is constant and you are like at least meeting expectations or slightly exceeding expectations, and they know that you are a dependable person, so that is how you create the mindset that, okay, this person is a dependable person. So that is the first thing. Second thing, I felt that you can play this game during the appraisal season, or slightly before the appraisal season, that, oh, I have this offer right now and it is 30% or 40%, whatever. So is it possible if you can match it during the appraisal? And if you can, have at least a discussion. Okay, that okay. So you get the general mindset of the management, or to, are they able to do it or not? Of course, they won't put it on an email or probably in writing.
Yeah.
But when you talk to them, are they positive or negative about it? See how it is going. If it is going in your favor, well and good. If you're planning to do it that way, but don't do that thing. Or this is me personally, that you put down your papers and then you ask for an appraisal is not how I will not.
It's not the way to deal.
Yeah, because then it will be like, oh, you're trying to play hardball, or probably the the power game with them. So yeah, so I won't do that personally, but yeah, there are people who do that as well. So, but then it sort of takes away the respect from the management that, oh, he will do this again probably, and you can't do this trick like every year. At least probably I will say give a cooling period of 2-3 years and then try again.
I also want to ask that how management perceives a candidate who is trying to switch or trying to find new opportunity in span of 6-7 months. Mm. Okay, so I was so what if someone wants to switch or change the industry or get another opportunity in span of 6 months?
First of all, it is not advisable. How much ever you say we are in a different generation, era, etc., it is not advisable for various reasons, and I'll come to that. Second of all, if at all you have to do it for whatever reasons, I mean, ensure that you have a very valid reason to do it first. Because, as much as we say it's okay, it's not. The hiring panel doesn't like it. The HR doesn't like it. Because for a very simple reason, let me, come to that reason that I'm saying. Now, the reason is that, unless you are there for an organization, in an organization, working with them for at least 2 to 3 years, you have no idea how an organization functions. Because, you cannot know the organization in 6 months, even if it is a startup. Unless you give it time and effort and days, you don't know how each and every function, how each and every individual, what are the ups and downs of that organization that are coming in, right? And once you know that, you are in a position to get to the next level, right? And if you are at a particular level, every 6 months you decide, I want to jump to a new opportunity, I'm not finding this interesting. probably go and ask your hiring manager to give you something interesting to work. So that's one thing you should explore before just taking up a decision and saying, no, I want to move on.
So it's better to discuss internally.
It is
than-
absolutely better if you're hiring, if your working terms are good, if you're finding your work interesting, you're just finding it boring for the timing because you've been doing this for the last 6 months and you think that no, I should be given more responsibilities. So take more responsibilities.
So next question is about hiring leads, like hiring leaders. So what exactly are you, or what is the HR or probably the organization looking into? Is it like the experience, charisma, or is it like just a cultural fit thing
In which you're saying?
in leadership roles?
Top leaders.
In leadership role, it's a combination. It's never one thing. I need skill that is non-negotiable. I need cultural fit. Again, that is non-negotiable for the simple reason that culture flows top down,
Yeah, two on the top.
right?
side.
And if you do not think the way I as an organization think, then you cannot pass it on to your juniors. So that's why it's very important. And what else did you say?
Cultural fit and probably the experience or the charisma.
The charisma.
Charisma.
The charisma is, see, at a leadership level, if you are somebody who's sitting at their own chair, the 8 hours of working, then I'm not sure how many face-to-face discussions, one-on-one discussions you're doing, and what is the output of the day. I mean, that's very important. It's important to talk to your team every day. It's important to understand what your team is doing on a daily basis, just to be a successful one, and at large, see that success down your team.
Awesome. And you mentioned 8 hours. So this brings to my next question is that I have seen that, okay, a lot of companies do this 8-hour, 9-hour policy, but then a lot of people end up working 11 hours.
See, today that has become the norm, out of the stringent budgets people are working on. And India as a country, I feel it's in a growth phase. In growth phase, you do things that you have not done earlier. And probably that's a part of it, but it is burning us out.
Correct.
So it is very important at an individual level that burnout is recognized and it is spoken about. And, I as a person, if you ask me personally, I feel burnout is not required. One can work good 8 hours, focused 9 hours at the most, and finish their work and finish their day and do the rest the next day. If there are scenarios one has to work, then probably it is how it is. I would not say it is wrong. I cannot say that. I take up an example that, today there's an engineer. So let's talk about a IT engineer or a developer who's working probably on an application. They had their product launch today. There was some production issue, right? They went through the production issue the entire 8 hours. It didn't get solved. And, there was something important happening. The launch was happening. The launch had to, fly that day, all of that. Then that person has to work 11 hours. I mean, if your need of the hour is not to work 11 hours, don't. But in a scenario like this, one cannot be sleeping off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't justify organizations like that. But a scenario like that is, I mean, one can take their own call whether they want to work or don't want to work. And honestly, companies can't stop, but they end up making decisions.
So the burnout is real.
It is.
And in that sense, what if there is a conflict between an employee and the manager, and employee believes that there is a coup between HR and the management? So there is this loss of faith. So how do we manage that?
See, as an HR, if one has to manage employee burnout, then they have to evaluate. So today, I'll tell you, we were doing this evaluation, and we're still in that process. We are evaluating the 8 hours of work that individuals are doing on the daily basis, and it is for each department, each function. Now, when this kind of evaluation is done, only then we know who is being burnt out. So it's very important that companies do this kind of evaluation and understand whether these 8 hours of work is happening, or,
People are working in bad faith.
people are working 11 hours. Some of them are not working even 5 hours. So that's something that needs to be figured out at an individual level.
So basically,
Only then this burnout question is going to be answered.
so there is a process of doing time and motion study at a reasonable hours to understand that, okay, this is the time effort is required. And accordingly, we do the strength management of a team.
Correct.
So this brings to my next segment, wherein we will talk about promotions, because promotions is like a very touchy topic for quite a lot of employees as such as us. So is promotion purely about performance, or is it like checking individual boxes that nobody knows about, or probably? So can you put some light on that particular topic?
Honestly, both. It's not only performance. So one has to check a few more boxes at an individual level. I mean, see, that's not necessarily something that you do at an individual level for your bosses, but just, come across as somebody who wants that promotion, who feels that they deserve that promotion. Because if you are going to think that, I have performed, now my manager should give me a promotion, and just sit back and relax, it's not going to work. You have to, be vocal enough in front of the team, in front of your manager, in front of your management, that, I have done this kind of work. I think I deserve this promotion. You have to say it out loud.
And I have seen a few hires at the leadership level which appears to be not as a great fit from the position perspective or from the team management perspective. So in that case, even if the team is pretty vocal, but now that the hiring is done, there is nothing much done about it. So in such scenarios, what can be done?
I didn't get that question.
Wrong hire.
Wrong hired, and
If I see that there is a managerial position available and the person is hired from some other industry,
okay,
and this person is new, trying to bring a new culture, we are okay with that. But we still feel that the person is not competent enough, and we find that this person may lack knowledge, or we compare with the previous leaders, or we compare with ourselves, but we see that it's not a good fit.
okay. So just because the industry is different, people around in the team you're saying will feel that it's, this person is not fitting in. I think
Even
that's
at
a
the
myth.
competent level.
I think that's a myth. Because when you change your job, one thing you got to get aligned with is the culture of the organization. Other than, other than your regular work, you got to also get aligned with the culture of the organization. So that's also important. I mean, competencies and skills are something that do not change largely. Largely, it is the cultural fit. If you go and see around yourself,
Get
around your
work
team,
done.
yeah.
One more probably a change of attitude happens that I have seen in one of the organizations that I worked at was I remember this CEO who like literally created the firm from the scratch, and he passed away. And he had this particular culture he had built in the organization, that you have to protect the little soldiers. Okay. And the minute he passed away and the person who came in, there was a cultural shift that I had seen, that it was hire or fire, hire and fire situation. Because at that point of time, the organization was going through the COVID phase and everything. So then it was very easy for the organization to, fire people. Before that, it was like really tough. Like you needed to have like good grounds to fire people. But then eventually, when the whole management shift happened, I think it was like chaos, and they were getting rid of people left, right, and center. And a lot of those people went away who were high cost, low output. They were the first ones. So it, I think either the new manager or whoever the leader is, he brings that cultural cultural change, or he has to fit into a culture, either or. So it completely depends on the very highest level of the hierarchy. But otherwise, like someone who is at the production level and managing a production level thing, I feel that those people will not directly make a change, Robbie. It will be mainly the ones that are like sitting on the CEO executive level that will bring that change. Yes, there might be conflicts for individuals, but I believe that in a 6 months or a year's time, those people will probably have trouble, because if they're not fitting in the culture, then it sort of stands out like a sore thumb. And that brings out to the next topic is, if there is a clash with leaders, so who will protect the little guy? Like how does HR help in that situation?
So if you're saying if there's a change in the leadership and the leadership styles are different.
And if say for example, even if it is the same leader, the new person, or probably a working person who has already been there, and if there is a clash, okay, so that's one of the scenarios that has happened, that okay, leaders clashed with a certain employee for a certain reason. Who protects that guy?
See, largely in clashes, if you ask me, you don't need to protect as such anybody. If somebody is performing and they can show their output and stuff, they're not touched upon. But if somebody is a non-performer and the leaders have been protecting them for years, then there's nothing much HR can do in that case, because one has to give a logical reason to the management to save that little guy.
Correct.
Right.
And then next question, or probably something that can be said is that, or I've seen is favoritism in the leadership. Does really HR step in whenever things go a little awry?
Yes, they do. We have to. So
And how will one highlight this? Like, do you have any real life scenarios?
yes, I'll tell you. So in fact, in the appraisal process and in your reviews process, quarterly reviews or whatever reviews you're doing, HR is a part. So there's a role called HR business partner, which is today a very fancy role, but it's a very important role to have in an organization. These are the people who are assigned few departments and they know each and every individual in that department, their work, their nature, their backgrounds, etc. And they are the ones who are unbiased third party to these conversations, and they need to help take the right decision. They need to have their own opinion. So that's why these kind of roles are today coming up. It was not there earlier, right? So HR business partner as a person helps the team member in that fashion, is what I would say. And if I have to talk about a specific scenario, I mean, appraisal is one specific area which is usually covered, and it is the HR's job to let the management know the reality of that team and that team member and the clashes between them. So I myself have been an integral part of these processes. I used to handle an entire sales team as an HR, sales plus technical, but largely sales team were the ones who we were facing on a daily basis. So it was very important to be on top of everybody's daily performance. And I mean, I had no choice but to, sorry,
Micromanage.
not micromanage. Know about people.
Okay.
Right? Micromanage is something that managers do. I mean, as an HR, I cannot micromanage. I cannot ask questions which I have no idea on. Correct. I would know things. I mean, as an HR BP, today we have a monthly check-in. You must have gone through monthly check-ins, quarterly reviews. These are the things that are active today. People are, or HR departments are doing these things today just to be on top of things and understand what is happening in each team. And this is just to assess efficiency till the ground level. So
What if
Yeah.
my HR business partner doesn't reach out to me? It's been 7-8 months down the line. So do you think that I should go ahead and reach out to my HR partner? And
yes, you should. So there is something called as skip level meetings. Ideally, the the hierarchical flow, if you ask me, it is your manager doesn't listen to you, you go to the next manager. If that man doesn't listen to you, basis the hierarchy, if there's a next manager, you go to them. If they do not listen to you, then you go to the HR. That's the flow of skip that should happen, right? But then if you think that these 3 people or 2 people are not aligned with me, you can directly reach out to HR.
And what will be the typical structure of an HR department?
Typically, so let's take a startup, right, which is which just has a few members today, and probably HR is not very structured in that company.
Hmm.
So usually one HR is important because hiring is something that people do, HR does. Your appraisal processes and your training and developments, your daily payrolls, monthly, those payroll cycles and stuff. So that is, these are the different functions that are important. So in a startup kind of scenario, at least one person is there. Now if you talk about a company that is, structured there for many years, has 1 or 2K of strength, they typically would have hiring as important part because of yearly replacements that are done, payroll as important, right? And training and development, or rather there's a generalist HR role that is there, so which takes upon training and development, performance management, right? So they take up combination of these things. These are the three people which are very important as an HR.
And HR business partner is the closest one to the employee.
You can say that.
Wow.
So the hardest questions about the HR, they have to deal with is benching or layoffs or exits. So what does being on bench really mean? Like, how does the HR team, how are they handling it, like, currently?
Benching, you mean ready to take up the next project?
Yes, that is one. Yeah, so that's the
Between
first stop.
projects.
Yeah, so in between projects.
In between projects. See, benching has been, it exists for a long time. I mean, it's not new. If I specifically talk about layoffs, I mean, today even HR roles are facing those scenarios where even HR is getting laid off. At the end of the day, as an employee, everybody needs to understand even HR is an employee. It's not the company. It's not, it's not their company. It's not their organization. It's not their profits. It's not, it doesn't belong to them. They're just the face of the management. Management cannot come to each and every department on a daily basis. That's why we exist, right? And at the end of the day, we are also employees. We are following, a lot of times we're following the instructions. So one has to understand and, align with that thought.
Correct.
Which I think is largely misunderstood.
And I've seen that when there is an exit, a lot of times the organizations, specifically the management, becomes a sort of a little hostile towards the employee. So have you seen such kind of trends as such in your recent experiences?
I have. Companies do become hostile. It's a fact. And I would accept it. But, how I as an HR made a difference, I can tell you that. Because in such a scenario, one can only take a stand for the employee, whether they are performing, not performing. At the end of the day, we as an HR professionals need to understand that, somebody, is whoever's going is a human. And you need to have that kind of basic sense. Somebody is going, you will let them go peacefully. You let them go with a good note, right? And we here are here, we are here to work, we're here to earn. And so is the organization, right? And the only thing, that I would tell any HR to do is whoever is going, just let them go peacefully and with a good note. Whether they're performing, not performing is nothing, is not a place where we should judge them individually. And to the employee, that, HR is not responsible to fire, they're not responsible for layoffs, they're not doing layoffs, executing them either. They are just the front faces of the management. And as much as the employee is unaware of these things, HR can be unaware. I wouldn't say always, but there's a possibility that this person who's giving you that message is not aware, was not aware of the details of what went on there.
So it's a management decision.
It is a management decision. And if the HR is very junior, high chances are that this person is not aware, right? They're just executing. And probably, somebody who's a fresher HR asked to do these things, believe me, largely they're not known. The reasons are not known to them. The reasons are only limited till the top management.
So I think the main crux of getting into an organization and then years of employee works into that particular role So HR plays quite a lot of important roles, but I think even the employee needs to understand that HR is just a human being, as Dimple specified in her dialogue, that yes, HR also has to manage 10,000 things. So an organization which has like 100, 200, or probably thousands of employees, and then there's only one single HR that is assigned to them. You have to be a little nice to HR. You have to be like, whenever you're reaching out to them, so you have to be like, okay, can we set up a time and do these things or have this particular discussion, because I feel that I'm not clear with this particular policy. So people, specifically freshers, I would say, don't get into the mindset of, oh, HR is not helpful. HR is helpful, but you have to give them a little time for them to come back to you. You have to ensure that official communication is done. If you have some kind of a query or a question, you reach out to them nicely, you get that information, and then probably you deal with that situation that way, rather than just bad mouthing HR that, oh, they are there only for recruitment and exit, but there is no specific communication in between. I really don't think so that that's how it works. HR never works it, but probably they're in the shadows. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think behind every policy there is a person, and today we heard their voice.
Correct.
And I'm sure that this conversation will give people clarity and very good understanding.
Yeah.
And it's been pleasure, Dimple. It's great to have you. And today the conversation has been so insightful, and I'm so excited. And it's just thank you for being part of the show.
Thank you for having me over. I would only say, as the last note, that I would always try to, give you insights as an individual or as an HR. I would say that, this role is largely misunderstood and people just have their own assumptions. A lot of, people from the business are close to me, but then they still have that one set of mind that, yaar, ye to HR hai, kya hi karte hain? Which is very wrong.
But I'm sure that perception will change.
Correct.
Sure.
So with this, we come to an end to an interesting conversation today. And for all the listeners out there, if you have any topics, you can always reach out to us on our fan page. That's on Spotify for Corporate Elements. And if you have any questions or queries, you can post it out over there, and we will look at it and probably have a conversation. So you never know, whatever you're saying probably can become a conversation. So with this note, I take a sign off, and thank you everyone, and keep listening to Corporate Elements.